Hey guys, it's late today and I'm gonna get some questions answered. I had two questions come in today that I think are worth addressing. That we are in the rainy season here. We've had some damage to the house because of just things that happen when we transition out of the dry season into the monsoon season, and that brought up an important question about how we handle repairs and such. We're going to talk about that and another question about importing a vehicle right after the bump. All right, we're gonna get right to our first question. Did you get some videos of the flooding? So no, the flooding happened in the middle of the night and my house is ridiculously dark under the best of circumstances. Like many houses in Nicaragua, and this is something to get used to, Nicaraguans typically love dark houses. And this comes from a tradition of not having a lot of electric to pay for lights, that people like dark, look because it helps them feel cool, and everything in the home is really about staying cool. So having a lot of bright lights and white walls don't really add to that. So there tends to be a lot of really dark wood, and it contributes to feeling like you're in a cave much of the time, and especially nighttime in more traditional Nicaraguan homes tends to be ridiculously dark. Even if you have really bright light bulbs, it's often absorbed into dark, like ebony wood all over the place. But they don't tend to use actual ebony. I don't find it very attractive. It's one of the things I don't like about traditional Nicaraguan homes is the woodwork. A lot of Nicaraguans absolutely love it. They think it's beautiful, it's fancy. So to them, these are expensive cabinets they have built in. I and the rest of my family absolutely hate them. We don't like built-in cabinets. We think that they're just impractical, and we don't like the look of the dark woods, and our ceilings in the house are the same dark wood, and our floors are dark. So even with all of the lights on at night, if I try to film something in the house, you can't see anything because all that light is absorbed into the walls. So that's something that, coming from North America, I like. White walls, white ceilings, light colored floors. I like my light to illuminate everything, and I like there to be lights everywhere, so there's a kind of soft but bright light without harsh shadows. Exactly the opposite of what you get typically in most homes in Nicaragua. So that's just a thing that's different. But my traditional house here, it's one of the reasons I film everything outside, or when I'm in my office, it's all a lot of studio lights to make that work. Does your landlord pay for repairs? This is because my roof gave out and it was basically a waterfall into the living room. The landlord does pay some. So in our particular instance, we have been living here a really long time. We have our own maintenance people. So what we end up doing is we have our maintenance person do a lot of repairs whenever they can, and our landlord pays for materials. So it's really not coming out of our pocket, but we are supplying a handyman, and he's the head of maintenance for our company. So it is coming out of somewhere else. We are paying a bit for that, but the landlord is paying far more than us. If it's something more than our maintenance guy can do, then the landlord pays for it. So for example, when we had to have a new septic tank put in, or we needed the actual roof replaced, or we need something just big done, yes, the landlord does pay for that. But if it's something that reasonably we can take care of, and or a regular maintenance item, we take care of it. And just if we have to buy some things, they pay for it, or whatever. It's a certain amount of just being practical, and it's one of the things I like about Nicaragua versus the United States, is that it's much easier in normal circumstances to work out something where the overall cost is reduced, and it just helps maintain a lower rent and a friendlier interaction and a more practical solution overall, so that everyone is winning. So it's really not that bad, but we do pay for some amount of that, and they pay for some. What if your furniture had been ruined? That's really on us under normal circumstances, because roofs can fail, and it's just part of having things in a house. Don't put things in a house that you want protected in that kind of way. To Americans, there is this, and in the US, there is a practicality to this. Someone is always at fault. Everyone has insurance, and so there is this mindset of find blame, go to their insurance company, get things paid for. But in many cases, that creates massive amounts of cost. Everyone along the chain has to maintain a lot of insurance, and we all end up paying much more than if we just didn't do that. Here in Nicaragua, it's, look, roofs are going to fail from time to time. There are things that can't be controlled, and unless it's gross negligence, we all need to kind of act appropriately. And if you have furniture that absolutely can't get wet, well, then put plastic over it. It's not the landlord's problem how much furniture you put in the house. And let me give an example. If the landlord was to rent this house to someone who was quite poor and they had one old wooden rocking chair and the roof leaked on it, the total damage might be $10. But if we were to put a whole bunch of really expensive foreign imported furniture in the house, the damage might be $100,000. Well, the landlord doesn't have a way to judge how we're going to use the house. It's not their responsibility. They have a responsibility to do their best to maintain the roof, but it's up to us how we're going to use the house. We're making the determination of what we're putting at risk in the house, and it's one of the reasons that I think insurance across the board is a terrible thing, because it makes this adversarial relationship at every stage. Now, we have furniture that's not worth that much, right? We have very practical furniture, and our dogs are on it all the time, and it can get damaged for any number of reasons, the roof being just one of them. And those are risks that we take. It's part of owning furniture. So I find that, just like in the US, I would feel terrible going to my landlord unless they did something, right? Oh, we told them this was wrong. They refused to fix it. We knew something was wrong. This is not a they knew something was wrong. This is a normal wear and tear of the roof. And when you have big storms, you're going to have leaks in traditional construction. We knew we rented a place with traditional construction. That's on us, right? We know what risks we're taking, and it's not something that the landlord can do more about. It's not like the landlord is here. It's not like they're in our house checking stuff out all the time. And it's not like even if they were, that this stuff wouldn't affect them. And if they were living here, these same things would affect them and their furniture. And they'd probably have a lot more furniture than we do. We actually have relatively little. So now, partially, we've done more damage to the house than they ever have done to our stuff. So that's one thing that we have to do a lot. We're the ones who have to do the repairs, not them, when we finally leave. But the idea that they're responsible for the things inside the house for normal wear and tear on the house really is not something that would come up here. I don't think that would ever make sense. Would you have just have to replace it yourself since no one seems to have homeowners insurance? Of course, and that's exactly what you want, because how much does a couch cost to buy here? Maybe $500-600. But how much would it cost to insure a couch? Because for the same reasons, right? We can go out and get a couch that maybe only costs us $600 to get, but the official list price is $1,000. So if the insurance company is going to replace it, they have to replace it on the spot at the time at the price they're able to get. We're not able to go out, or we're not about to go out and fight for the best price for that couch, and the insurance company can't go out and do the shopping for that couch. So we're going to replace it for $1,000, even though we could shop around and find it for $500 if we were being reasonable. So for the insurance company, they're insuring something that's going to cost them twice as much as it cost us to put in. If we damage the couch and it's not completely damaged, but maybe it's got a little bit of stain, well, if we did that damage, we'd probably just live with it. Oh, you know what? I stained the couch. But if the roof leaks on it and we can claim insurance, oh, we're going to make the insurance company pay $1,000 for what we would mentally consider $10 of damage to the couch. It's a really misleading thing. So in order to cover that, the insurance company has to collect an awful lot of money to cover the possibility of us charging more than the couch cost in the first place. And so because of that, insurance is really expensive, but replacing a couch is really cheap. And if we're being diligent, we can do an awful lot to protect that couch. We, for example, when the roof started to leak, we immediately moved it away from the leak and it didn't get ruined. We also picked couches that could get wet to some degree, and couches that weren't that expensive, because we know that there's practical things you have to deal with. You have, wow, it is humid today. You know, we have dogs that get on it. We have a cat that could get on it. We have guests who use it all the time. We have kids. People like to eat on it, right? This is not a showpiece piece of furniture. It's not about being as expensive as possible. It's about it having a practical place to sit. And that's how life works here, right? If you want to have really expensive things, you're going to take risks with them, and you can afford to do so. So it's all about a really more practical approach, and it really is going to make things work better. But the idea that you're going to go out and insure things, that's just throwing money away. Insurance isn't going to make it better. It will only make it more expensive. Mathematically, that has to be the case. All right, our second question. What is the cost of importing a 2002 Jeep Wrangler? Approximately. It blue books for around $9,000 US in the US. I'm one of the people that would choose to have the expense and headache of owning a vehicle that owning a vehicle presents, even though it isn't necessary. What if it was just for 90 days that a U.S. passport allows without a visa? Okay, so a lot of things here, but a couple things are really simple. Can you import? Let's start with, can you import a 2002 Wrangler? No, not an option. So that answers that. There's no price associated with it. It's not a 10-year or younger vehicle, so it's not eligible for import. So that's not going to happen. If you are going to import a vehicle, assume it's going to be a higher Blue Book than you see in the US, especially if you go to something like a Jeep Wrangler, because that's not for sale in Nicaragua. Let's say you had one from 10 years ago, so 2016, and it Blue Booked for, I don't know, 25,000 in the US. Assume they're going to say it's 40,000 here in Nicaragua. Why? Because it's not available on the market. So if someone was going to buy one, they would have to import it, and it would be that much more expensive. So it's going to be a premium custom import. So they can basically assign any price to it they want, but there's no chance that its actual value on the market here would be 25,000. That's completely unreasonable if that's what it is in the US. Whatever it is in the US, it would be much higher here because it's not a vehicle that is sold or available here. So this vehicle that is 9,000 in the US would easily be 15 or 20,000 here if it was already in the country and you were allowed to sell it, right? So that's an important thing to understand. If you were going to compare a Toyota Corolla that is coming in versus a Toyota Corolla that is already here, they will use the value of the car in Nicaragua. So you can have a pretty upfront guess as to what it's going to be, and they may even use the Blue Book value. But if you're doing a custom vehicle like that, it will skyrocket the cost. Then the general rule of thumb is that you're going to pay a little bit more than half that value again in importation taxes. So that Jeep Wrangler that you're bringing in will likely be about $20,000. That's my guess, but to get one in, that's likely what you're going to pay on top of having purchased the vehicle somewhere else. Mathematically, we have never seen a scenario where someone's actually happy with bringing in a vehicle. Some people have done it successfully. We have a whole video from Jerry recently in the last few weeks where he goes through his very long, very painful process of bringing in a vehicle. So for the person who's asking the question, absolutely, there are many cases where owning a vehicle here could make a lot of sense. There's many cases where it's worth the effort and energy and pain and annoyances to own a vehicle. I own a vehicle. I own two vehicles, right? I have a big truck that's not completely unlike a Wrangler, but it is one that is sold here. And I have and it's a 2002, right? I have a 2002 4x4, okay? But it's worth $5,000 and I can buy it here in country. You can buy it here in country. A big diesel goes everywhere. They can fix it cheap. That's a vehicle here, right? And then I have a luxury SUV. I use them for different things. And having a vehicle, absolutely, there can be cases where it makes sense. Obviously, I believe that to be true. I think the average person probably shouldn't have it, but 100% understand why you may want a vehicle. However, you do not import a vehicle, you buy them here. And this is generally the rule anywhere in the world, but especially in countries like Nicaragua where there's no supply chain. So if you get a Wrangler here, how are you ever going to fix it? Every repair has to be brought in from overseas. That's going to be a big expense, and there's going to be lots of time that you can't drive. It's just going to be terrible. And the example that we always use of the couple that came in and brought a relatively new vehicle, and they thought it would be so cool. They have this vehicle they love, and they imported it, and they had it here. That was a Jeep Wrangler. That is the horror story that every 14 days they were stuck in Managua for the entire duration of their time in Nicaragua. Their lives revolved around that vehicle. They were so sorry. It was life-destroying, quite literally. They had to drive back to the United States to stop that problem, and they never returned. There are a few things more clear-cut than you don't want to bring a vehicle here without a really clear path back. So, but this is easy. The vehicle that you already have, not an option. If you want a vehicle, buy it here. You can't buy here normally under the things we normally say, without residency. There are ways to buy without residency, but they're few and far between. I don't know why it's so hard, but it is. Then the last question, what if it's just for the 90 days a U.S. passport allows without a visa? So this is misleading for a couple of reasons. One, the U.S. passport allows 180 days, not 90. You do have to do this extension thing, but it's part of the same visa. So you get a 180-day visa. As a human, your car does not. It is a completely separate system and part of the incredible pain of importing a car. Until you get residency, you don't have the option of fully importing a car. So if you come down and start doing a temporary thing, you get what's known as a TIP, a temporary import permit. We talked about this extensively in the video with Jerry a few weeks ago, and a couple days ago we did a video about bringing down an RV in which we talked about that as well, and we talk about it from time to time. But the TIP is a big deal. The TIP in Nicaragua, as in many countries, is 30 days, no exceptions. That means if you're coming down for 180 days, you have to go through 6 renewals of that TIP. And the TIP is not like renewing your regular passport visa, your tourist visa. It is a lot more work. It's got to be done in Managua. There's a lot of paperwork. And like the friends I had who brought a vehicle down previously, they had to go every 2 weeks because of the complications of the paperwork. Even though technically it was a month cycle, they had to go twice. And so they would go for 2 weeks, take a few days off, and go back. They basically never got to leave Managua. The whole time they were here, all they did was focus on keeping their car legal. That was their whole life. They talked about it. They would come home, have a couple days to relax, and go right back into the process of getting their car legalized for the next 2 weeks. Absolutely insane. Ruined their lives. So if you were to come down on vacation, if you're passing through, not a problem at all, because you'll come in, spend a few weeks, and move on to the next country. Your TIP is in and out. If you have to renew a TIP, that's when you are going to be sorry. As long as you can come in on a single TIP and you're not going to keep the car here for over 30 days. So when people say, I want to drive my dogs down, I don't want them to fly, I'm going to drive down, drop my dogs, sleep for 2 weeks because the drive's really long. I want to relax for 2 weeks, and I'm going to get back in the car and drive back north again. That works just fine. That is what the system is designed for. Nicaragua doesn't want to stop you from driving through. They don't want to stop you from driving in with your dogs. They don't want to stop you from visiting for a few weeks, checking things out, driving around, and leaving. All those things you are very welcome to do. What they will do, everything they can to punish you for trying to do, is bringing in a car and renewing that TIP or trying to import a vehicle. Those are things they don't want you to do. Once you have residency, if you can get a practical car, they will charge you an arm and a leg, they will give you a little bit of a discount, and they will let you do an import every so often. I don't know anyone who recommends that process, but you can't. But you do not bring in that vehicle until you're a resident. If you bring it in before you're a resident, you are going to trigger this TIP disaster, and you will struggle to get to be a resident because of the TIP system. It will get in the way of becoming a resident. And once you're a resident, I don't believe you can do the TIP renewal. I don't know exactly what happens, but if you have a vehicle here on a TIP, I believe you have to get it back to wherever you came from and then re-import it to qualify for importation. I don't think you can convert a TIP into a permanent import. That I might be wrong on. But it's a complicated system, and you will regret it. This is not an exception thing. Right? This is everyone thinks they're going to be the exception. Everyone thinks that an old vehicle somehow is going to make sense. Everyone thinks that a custom vehicle that you can't get here and can't get parts for here will be fun. All those things sound great until you go to drive them, you throw an axle, and realize nobody can work on your vehicle, no one can get parts, and now you are legally obligated to renew your TIP in a vehicle that can't cross a border because it doesn't work. You are now in an illegal situation because you're not supposed to put yourself into a position where that could reasonably happen. And yeah, there's going to be some allowance for it, but it's not going to be pretty. You are going to regret that decision. So if you want to have a car here, rent one when you don't have a way to buy one. Once you can buy one here. There's loads of cheap vehicles here. And that's another important thing to understand. Vehicles that are going to function well here, meaning they can get repaired here, are cheap here. They're not expensive to get cars here. So I totally get why a Jeep Wrangler is a specialty vehicle that people who love them, that's their favorite car and they don't want anything else. That's unfortunate that that particular brand and make are not available here. Brand and model are not available here for those people that really want them. And I do know of one that's here. I have no idea, how many problems they've had with it. Clearly they've imported it. They own property, and so they use it to drive around. I've only ever seen it moving on the road a few times. I don't know if they just don't like to drive it, if it's here temporarily. I don't know what the story is. They do exist. It wouldn't be the only one in the country, but I've never heard of someone who did it and didn't regret it. There's just so many things to go wrong, so much cost, and there's so much more you can do. There's so many awesome vehicles that you could get, whether it's a Mitsubishi 4x4 or a Toyota Land Cruiser, something that's going to be easy to maintain and easy to get parts and people can fix quickly, and you'll just get a better deal and your resale value will be better. Thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/ScottAllenMiller. Remember, you can go into the show notes and help donate on a GoFundMe to Marcela, my producer, who has Hodgkin's lymphoma. We're helping to support her and her family as they go through. She has to move between cities and take care of kids. She's a single mom with cancer, so that's tough. And if you need to contact me, you need to ask a question, you want to send in a video, you want to find our social media, all that stuff in the show notes. And of course, hop in the comments, say hello, ask a question, and I will see all of you tomorrow.